YouTube, what it do? It's your guy CJ back with another video, back with another episode of the CJ Wilkins YouTube channel. So earlier today, man, I got an email from a subscriber. She asked to remain anonymous, so I will not say her name out of respect to her. But she asked me a very good question, man. I got to give her credit for this because most of the emails I get are from male listeners. I guess I kind of direct my content more so towards the men, but I'm always appreciative when my female subs get on and, want to pick my brain for a couple things, right? So essentially, this lady, she sent me an email today, man. She's been married for 10 years. Young couple too, like they're like both in their early 30s. So they got married pretty young, but she's at a point to where she's not sure if the marriage that she's currently in is worth fixing or like working on. And she described in the email that she loves her husband and she thinks that he loves her back, but it's a lot of arguing, they feel like they're not on the same page, quote unquote, right? And with me, man, when it comes to things like marriage or long-term relationships, I do believe that if you're going to get married or if you're going to really commit to somebody, you really should take it serious and you really should try to fight and work as hard as you possibly can to make it work. You know what I mean? I'm not a fan of people just getting up and filing for a divorce because you had an argument or a disagreement. I don't think that was what the institution of marriage was created for, But I will say this also, right? Because there's context to this question, right? At what point is a marriage or a relationship not worth, fixing or working on? And the simple answer to that, even though it can go a lot deeper, the simple answer is a relationship and or a marriage is not worth fighting for when it gets to the point to where both people in the marriage or in the relationship are not fighting for the same thing, right? And it sounds simple. It sounds, ABC, 1 + 1 is 2. But it's really that simple, right? In a sense. Not overall, but in a sense, it really comes down to relationships and the marriages that work when both parties want to be there, when both parties want to be in a marriage, when both people in the long-term relationship actually want to be in a long-term relationship. I don't think you need a PhD to understand that in America, as of 2022, 51% of all marriages in divorce, right? And I don't have the updated stats from 2024 or how this is looking in 2025, but marriage itself is a beautiful concept. It's an incredible institution. I do believe that in many aspects it's an outdated philosophy for today's time, especially with today's people. But the way to know whether or not your relationship or your marriage is worth fighting for, or really putting the time, energy, effort, bandwidth into working out, because problems are gonna happen. Like when you with somebody for a long time, man, or you're married, or you're in a long-term relationship. I know sometimes people try to separate the importance of each. You know what I'm saying? They'll give more credence to somebody who's married, or they'll say a relationship really isn't as important, right? But to a thinking man, to a logical man or woman, right, the importance of dating and the importance of a relationship and the importance of really taking your time when forming a union with somebody, right, is that it's almost like the interview phase of a job, right? Because you have to look at marriage for what it is. In some instances, it's a business, right? Yeah, you can love the person and you should be in love with them, right? You should love a person. But love is an emotion, right? It comes and it goes, and it's fleeting, right? And because it's fleeting, you have to know you can't marry a person off love alone. Like, love is an incredible component to have, but you have to really go into it like this is a merger, right? Look at it like you're Google and they're Facebook, and you got to ask yourself, how is this thing going to work long term, because the goal should always be long term, I don't think it's very wise to get married to a person and you don't really see a future with them, but yeah, man, it has to be both people engaged, both people who want the same thing, Not saying you can't have your own individual like pursuits and like desires out of life, but as it pertains to your union and what you're building together, what you both want out of your marriage, it needs to be parallel. It needs to be at least on the same page, It doesn't have to be on the same line, but it does need to be on the same page. And if it's not on the same page, whether that be talking to the lady, whether you're still engaged and you want it to work and he has checked out, or it could be the other way, right? There were some things that you stated in the email that may kind of lean towards he wants the marriage still and you're kind of checked out, right? So it could go either way, like whether you're checked out and you're just going through the motions, or he's checked out and he's going through the motions and he's the one over there fighting for it and begging, or you're the one that, really wants it to work out. If it's only one person, man, and you have to kind of do work to convince or plead, I didn't mean to say beg. Beg sounds crazy, like not begging, but, people, I look at a lot of things in life from like a logical standpoint, right? And since marriage is a business, right, you have to look at it like an employer. You own a company and you have to force or try to coerce your people to stay with the company, right? If you had to do that every day, it'll take a toll on you, and eventually it would get to the point where you just realize this person doesn't want to be here. This person doesn't want to be employed by this company or by this institution. So of course you have to let them go at some point, because there's always going to be someone who does want to be there and someone who does want to work with you. But if you find yourself in a situation to where you're not both tapped in and tuned in to what you want, it's just not going to work, You can have a good day. You can, kind of manipulate how each other feel for an evening or whatever. But if a person has completely checked out, and I'm not saying like they're just mad at you for a day. Your woman can be mad at you and give you the silent treatment, or, your guy can be kind of like having an attitude. Ladies, your husband can be kind of, just give me my space today. That don't mean he hates you. That doesn't mean he don't want to be married to you. That don't mean that she's not, that doesn't mean, fellas, that she's like having second thoughts about being with you, It just means that, you're just having a rough day, and rough days happen. But when it gets to the point, man, to where it's a consistency of one person being motivated, I guess, to be in a relationship or a marriage, and the other person is kind of like, you can tell they don't want to be there, but because of the circumstances, or they may not have made a decision yet, or they may not want to separate family if you guys have kids, or they may not be in a spot financially to really get away, because, hey man, one thing about divorces are expensive. And in this economy, there are a lot of people who are kind of checked out of their marriage, but they just can't afford to get a divorce. So they're still together, snoring in each other's faces, going through the motions, but they hate each other. And they don't want to be together, right? But because a divorce is so expensive in today's time, right, in this economy, They kind of just stay together, you know. So they're not together because they're quote unquote working on it or they want it to get better. They're just kind of they're hanging on because the price tag to get away from this person is so great that they can't just do it right now. You know what I mean? So you have that too, man. But yeah, like just it really comes down to, do both people want to be there? Both people have to want to be there. And you know, a guy like me, man, I'm very matter of fact. And I don't like mince words, or I don't placate to indecisiveness. You know what I mean? If you want to be here, great. If you're happy to be here, awesome. Let's work on that. Let's put a game plan together. Let's whatever we gotta do, pray together. Go get, you know. I'm not the biggest advocate of counseling because I always think the three people in a marriage or a union should always be man, woman, and God, you know. But, you know, sometimes people may feel like they need to go get counseling from somebody else, you know. And there's nothing wrong with that either. Like, I'm an advocate for therapy. So, like, sometimes you do need that third party, you know. But it just comes down, man, to really, do both parties want to be there? And if the answer is yeah, I don't think you should get a divorce. I don't think you should leave your husband. I think y'all should figure it out, work it out together. 10 years is a long time, you know, and to just cut it off because, you know, you guys been having some rough months, and, you know, it'll do it, man. You put together some rough months with somebody, bro. Sometimes it's just easier to go get your peace back and not deal with that person, you know. So I get it. Trust me, I understand it. But, but, you know, if you ask each other and you're honest and you're genuine and you both ask each other and ask yourself, hey, do I want to be in this relationship? Do I want to be in this marriage? And if both of you or if either of you say, no, I don't want to do this anymore, I can't do this anymore, I don't want to be here, then I think you owe it to yourselves most importantly, but to each other also, to create an exit strategy as soon as possible. You shouldn't, tarry away. You shouldn't falter and just, kick the can down the proverbial road. You need to try to really create a plan to where you can find a way to separate from one another as soon as possible. And the sooner you do that, then the sooner you'll be able to, start the healing process and working on yourself and, getting your mind and your space and your concentration back, Depending on also, too, I didn't ask her like in my reply email, but, I will say this. Depending on if you're a spiritual person or not, it's always good to try to talk to the Most High about these things too. Sometimes, like when you pray to God, or some people may refer to Him as the universe, you may ask the universe for guidance on things, and a lot of times God will point you in the direction that you want to go. Because sometimes, man, when we try to lean on our own understanding, we'll fall short, because as smart or as deep as you think you are, you don't know everything. And sometimes, you can feel a certain way, man, but what's best for you, sometimes you got to really pray about it and just go to sleep. And when you wake up, God will most certainly point you in the direction that you need to go. Now, if you're not a spiritual person, you don't do the God thing, then you have to kind of just go off your own, like, judgment, you know what I mean? And there's nothing wrong with that either. Like, if that's how you operate and that's what you want to do, that's fine. But, yeah, man, do you both want to be there? It can't be you want to be there and he is already thinking about a life outside of you, or vice versa. If y'all have gotten to the point, man, to where either of you or if both of you want to get out, and for whatever case y'all just haven't done it yet, or y'all don't want to hurt the other person or whatever, you got to realize this, man. You got one life and you're not getting any younger. And the only person that you really, especially with children involved, I think the email said They got 3 kids together, young kids between 7 and I think she said 16. I'll go back and read the email later and update if I'm incorrect on that. But you do more damage to your family, to other people, and yourself long term by staying in a situation that drains you, a situation that defeats you. Your marriage and your significant other, your relationship, there should be life that's bestowed into you by being with your person, right? Because if there's somebody that God sent you, if your marriage is by God, or God, manifested you all to form a union or guided y'all, right? Then I think you can get through it. But what a lot of people do, most people don't get with the person that God picked for them. Most people go and they get with the person they like. And that's why most marriages and most relationships don't work in today's time. And I'm not just talking about the lady who sent the email. I'm talking about people in general. The reason why a lot of these marriages are failing out here is not necessarily because men are trash or women are garbage or anything like that. It really just comes down to people don't pray about who I'm supposed to marry. They don't talk to God on an intimate level about this. Is this a woman you sent me, or is this a woman I like because she got the hips and she got more cake than Betty Crocker and them things up top be sitting up like the Undertaker, or because she's pretty? Like, a lot of people, they go based off what they like. Ladies will see a guy and he's tall, he's dark, he's handsome, but the guy can be a whole demon, a whole worker of the most of the most evil, the most low. I always call God the most high and the devil the most low. So if you hear me say the most low, I'm talking about Lucifer, right? But all in all, man, I wish you all the best. I hope the lady sees this video. I told her that I was going to do a video response for her question. And yeah, man, just really do some deep thinking. I think they're Christian people, right? From what I know. But yeah, man, just pray about it, take it to God, whatever God tells you, believe it, But if either one of y'all have it made up in your mind that it's not gonna work, trust me, it's not gonna work. And if both of you, only if both of you think that it is gonna work, then you'll make it happen. As always, if you guys CJ, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, the CJ Wilkins YouTube channel. And I'm out. Peace.